We open on a sun-kissed morning as Weevil and Jeeves sit porchside overlooking the long, ruined remains of City 42, planet side of Rayleigh 2, center of the Rayleigh system, deep within Novacore territory. Once a beautiful ocean oasis, Rayleigh 2 was colonized hundreds of years ago, pre-Scream, pocked with anti-grav-powered floating cities, and ruined, eventually, as all things were, by the Scream. What we're left with now is but floating continents of scrap heaps blip with concrete and iron ramshackle sediments adorning the top of the ever-stretching pre-tech ruins. A sight Weevil and Jeeves are all too familiar. One they know as home, rich with possibilities lying beneath the piles of ruins below, friendly faces of refugees and everyday folks settling above. We cut back to the porch of Jeeves's holodeck and vacuum repair shop on one innocuous morning no different than the previous and likely to be the same as the next. Jeeves leans back with his tin mug in hand. It brims with a strange black sludge he occasionally sips on. He takes a deep breath, sighing, smiling, and turning to Weevil. You know, mornings like this are, they're just about perfect, Weevil, but they're missing something. Do you happen to know what that is, kiddo?
I do not know. It is very quiet out.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Open those audio receptors of yours open. You never listen. It's quiet, maybe a little too quiet, you know. And as Weevil is listening to the surroundings around him, he is able to pick up on this occasional wind gust, the pitter-patter of a tumbleweed rolling by, perhaps a small rodent scampering between piles of sheet metal, but not much else. As Jeeves calls out, the birds, Weevil. They're quiet today. I don't know where they're gone. I miss those little fellas, you know?
I miss them too. It is strange not having all that background noise.
Yeah, I suppose you got used to it after I dug you out of that scrap heap, you know? Listening to silence for God knows how long, and then suddenly you're alive again, so to speak. Well, maybe they'll be back later this afternoon. As Jeeves takes a belabored sip from his cup. He pulls the mug back down from his face and a light kind of shines in his eyes. He's like, I almost forgot. Can I trouble you, my good friend, for some assistance later today? We gotta get here opening the shop here in a minute, but I was putzing around in the backyard there, and I found something that looks kind of interesting. I think it's a one of those like a vintage projector, one of those kinds that like scream pre-tech hollow vids. Trouble is, it's buried underneath some sort of industrial refrigeration unit. Thing must weigh, oh God, I don't know, a couple thousand pounds, ton or two. And you know me, I'm in my prime, Weevil, but even I can't move that by myself. So you think when we get a slow moment, you could come out back with me and help me move that thing? I'd love to.
You're the picture of masculine virility.
He kind of flexes beneath his jumpsuit a little bit, and he's like, I know.
But yes, I can help you. That sounds interesting. I would be interested in seeing what may be on that projector.
Oh, yeah. I got a small collection of these pre-tech holovids, and he kind of looks back into the shop, one of those crates. You know Jeeves, of course, to be wildly unorganized, especially when it comes to his bits, bobs, doodads. He goes, "I'd love to show you some of the entertainment you've been missing out on all these years, Weevil."
Hell yeah. Weevil's like little HUD turns into the loading symbol again, and he goes,
I believe I saw a collection of such discs in box A14ZYL. Oh wait, I forgot that I did not share my filing system with you.
He thinks for a moment. He's like, "I didn't write any. That doesn't sound right, Weevil. I check your work on that again." I'm pretty sure HoloVids go in A14-BL, but you know, maybe my old bean up there is not quite kicking this early in the morning.
A14Y-BL is your collection of Old Men Gold Chains magazine.
Okay, well, you know we will. You know I normally appreciate your humor, but that one cut deep. And he hoists himself up out of his like lawn chair. He has like a old beach chair he sits in on his porch, taking his last swig of brown sludge that accelerates his heart rate and rots his teeth. Weevil probably maybe doesn't so much like that Jeeves drinks this much of the strange brown stuff.
yeah.
But
I think in the past, Weevil would have run like an analysis on it, seeing Jeeves basically drinking what looks like motor oil. Is it coffee or is it something else?
It's really bad coffee. It's like,
Okay.
you know, this is like import coffee, the best you can get on the planet in these circumstances, you know. And it's I personally, I imagine it's one of those things where it's like, why do you do this to yourself? This is bad. It does nothing. It's bad for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like Weevil's looking at him smoke cigarettes or something like that, and it's like, I really can you fucking not, you know?
Yeah.
But Jeeves hoists himself up, his knees pop a little bit, and he's like, "Well, I'm gonna head inside. Weevil, if you'd be a darling and grab the shutters behind me, hoist those shutters up. I think it's about time to open up shop for the day."
I'm on it, Jeeves.
And yeah, Weevil will, once Jeeves gets up, he'll kind of stand up and go about getting the shop ready, opening shutters, making sure all the wires for the neon sign are connected and not going to short out and blow up at a moment's notice.
You have to recoil two together to these like very loose copper wires that are jury rigged together. They've come undone in the night. You're like, all right, well, spin them back around each other. Completely
Yeah, exactly.
Great. The neon sign flickers on partially, reading, Jeeves's hollow D and vacuum repair. The ECK have gone out. And you lift the metal shutters up. Jeeves unlocks the doors and gets things ready for the day. And we're going to fast track a couple of hours as the day begins and people start coming in to get their orders placed, pick up their holodecks and vacuums and various engineering accoutrements, their comm pads, their small service bots, et cetera, that Jeeves has maybe been working on. People come in with new requests, check in on old ones. And as Jeeves solders and files and tweaks, why don't you give me our first roll of work would be a good check, a work check.
Hell yeah. First roll I've ever made in character, ever,
Yeah.
anytime.
I know. This is the moment defining. This will point who Weevil is as a character.
Yeah.
I think I'll take any stat except charisma makes sense to me.
Okay, cool.
And
I'll
con.
go for intelligence then.
Yeah, I take strength, X, wizard. All right, a 14. Wow.
Whoa!
No, with that roll, you are flying by. At one point, Jeeves is bent over a small kind of bipedal version of a Roomba, essentially this household vacuum bot, and he's like, "Oh God, damn it, this thing's all fried to hell. Weevil, could you hand me a?" And you are already there with it in hand.
I have your left-handed torque wrench right here.
He looks at you for a moment, he's like, "Well, I needed my right-hand one, but this'll do." He kind of takes it from you.
I have your right-handed torque wrench right here.
You knew he needed the left-hand one, and he's just like flabbergasted. He's like, "Well, I gotta keep Weevil on his toes. I can't let him know he's doing too well."
Pretty suitably asking for a raise.
Exactly. He helps you, or you help him rather, with a variety of assistant jobs, and when he doesn't need you, you're further organizing his many piles of unorganized scrap heap, pulling Old Men in Chain magazines out of boxes otherwise filled with sprockets and gears, and pulling old circuit boards out of a box labeled rations. You know, it's like nothing is organized, nothing is where it should be. Boxes are just filled with random things. And this has been an ongoing project for you, and you feel, despite your hyper sort of organizational capabilities, your sort of inherent talent at filing, and a very robotic sense of cleanliness, I guess I should say. Somehow the shop grows more and more disorganized every day. It's the one thing G's has you beat at. You know, you can solve any equation exponentially faster than the old man could ever hope to, but man, does he have you beat at making a mess faster than you can clean it up.
Yeah.
The first few hours of the day go by, and Jeeves is cranking away at various projects, knee deep in different components, vacuum bots, comm pads, gizmos, devices. And while you are cleaning up the front half of the sort of display section of the shop, Jeeves is back in a what is essentially like a back room office, janitor's closet, engineering room / bedroom, where Jeeves has a hammock laying, or where he sleeps as well. You hear a loud sort of crash and not, I hesitate to say small explosion, but a loud pop and sizzle as you hear Jeeves kind of call out, "Oh, God!"
Yeah. Clunk, 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 clunk. Weevil is kind of stomping across the room and enters to see what the commotion is all about.
And sure enough, as you slide the sliding metal door open, you see Jeeves kind of hunched over, sitting in a chair, covered in what looks to be smoke and black powder, as something has gone wrong, and sort of popped onto him. He appears in good health and okay, not injured, but frazzled. His hair's blown back a little bit, barely clinging to his head, as he looks up at you, kind of exasperated, and wipes the soot from his giant goggles so he can see you. He goes, "Oh, everything's fine, bud."
Weevil grabs a soiled towel, like the cleanest one he can find, but probably still covered in like grease stains, and he hands it to Jeeves, and he says,
"You are not wearing your respirator. I can tell because there is no clean spot on your face. Why were you not wearing your respirator? We have talked about this, Jeeves."
"Oh, it doesn't fit right. It pinches my ears. It's hard to breathe in that damn thing anyway," which I mean, it's the whole point. He's wiping soot off of his face, and you notice as he does, he's wiping in little circles. He's getting the soot off of his face, but now a slightly different hued color of soot is being reapplied to his face from the rag. He's just exchanging soot. Yeah. And he's like, it's the whole point of a respirator. It's supposed to help me breathe easier, and you know what? It goddamn doesn't. All right, I'll be fine. All right. Like you said, I'm the picture of men's health.
Yeah, Weevil's like a little cartoon face. Like, eyebrows materialize above his eyes, and one of them is, like, raised. And then the eyebrows disappear, and he's back to his normal expression.
Yeah. He goes, but Weevil, a refrigeration unit, the holodeck projector, I might need to wait for a little bit, because, as of recent events, and he points down to, what is this, like a Roomba? He's like, that is currently, like, smoldering. As of recent events, I'm gonna need you to run out and grab me well, do me a favor. I need you to go to town, outskirts of the city, where the market is, and pick me up a few bits, bobs, and doodads, if possible. I got this rush job ahead of me, and that was my last, devioscope I had on hand. It kind of got fried in the explosion, and now I can't calculate the differentials I need to get this thing circuit board realigned. I was wondering if you could pick up a few other bits and bobs while you're in town. I mean, you might as well, but I gotta crank this thing out before Mr. Jenkins gets back, and
so this is the job that he's working on right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Weevil gives him a thumbs up, and he goes,
"Very well. Just send me the shopping list, and I will get what you need."
All right. Let me see your compad, and he touches wrist to you. After a brief moment of programming it into his own, he touches wrist with you, and you download the data, a list of 1 box of 3/8 titanium sprockets, 3 cans of anti-gerasone, which you know to be a component that prevents rust and decay, almost similar like WD-40.
Based WD-40.
Yeah. A secondhand devioscope, he writes in, like, bold parentheses after it, used, which you understand to be essentially like a high-tech protractor almost. It's like a hologram projecting device that helps you sort of calculate mathematical differentials between angles and spaces, so you can do like super minute micro work. He asks for today's Padloid, which is just a newspaper. It's a digital newspaper. A crate of plums, if possible, and a Mark 2.2 NovaCore Scuttlebot nav chip, which you know is a project that he's been working on for a while for himself, a side project, of trying to get this, like, it's sort of a old NovaCore model bipedal droid. Comes only like a foot up, that scuttles around and is capable of like small manual digging labor and like almost like a less advanced version of like BB-8 or like the droid from the Star Wars games. It's got the little legs and the box on the head. But yeah. That's what he asks of you on your shopping list, and he also, in the process, transfers you 500 credits.
Yeah, Weevil is talking and looking down at this list, and he goes,
"Jeeves, we have discussed that there is no budget for the Scuttlebot Mark II chip right now."
Weevil, you know, you're the first VI I've ever encountered that is so worried about money. You know, what do you need money for?
I am made of metal, and metal costs money, as does medical expenses. So there is much reason to be concerned with finances.
All right. Well, look.
As they say in the old world, we are bleeding funds like a stuck pig.
Yeah, there's been better days at the shop. We've been in better times, but you know how it gets seasonal. Things pick up, they slow down. Well, everything's fine, Weevil. You worry too much, all right? Look, you just gotta head down to the market and hit up the usual suspects, you know, and I'm sure you can sweet talk Rock into giving you a deal on the sprockets and the Gerasone and whatnot. He owes me a favor and all that, so we've been friends a long time. So, you know, flash him that award-winning smile of yours, and I'm sure, you know, everything. You can get everything for 500. It'll be fine.
That man does not enjoy haggling, but I will see what I can do.
Well, nobody enjoys haggling, Weevil. You gotta understand that about people. We do it because we must. We don't do it because we like it. One of those human intricacies that maybe you'll never fully wrap your head around, but, you know.
Very well. I will see what I can do.
All right.
But I will sort them in terms of this priority.
And then in front of Jeeves's eyes, the list just like reshuffles itself so that the Mark II chip is at the bottom, and like the Padloid's right above that, and like the Devious Scope and the other essentials for the shop are right at the top.
Okay. He kind of folds his arms and he's like, all right, I think you can get it all. So I think it's a pointless endeavor to prioritize, but who am I to question Weevil?
Yeah.
All right. So, good luck with the, good luck with the shopping trip.
Thank you. Good luck with the repairs.
And without further ado, Weevil will his upper body will do like a 180-degree swivel, and then like his legs will stomp around until he's facing in the opposite direction, and then he will plunk, 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 plunk right out the door.
Jeeves calls out after you. He's like, I hate when you do that, man, but it's bad for your spine. You gotta keep those vertebrae lined.
Yeah.
And you stomp your way out of the shop and start making your way towards the remnants of City 42. Jeeves's sort of Vespa that he has to transfer himself into town is currently out of order, which is probably why he's asked you to do this as well as having a time crunch on his own hands. And it would normally take him about half an hour to get into the city. But you've made this walk before, and it takes about 2 hours for you. It is just before, but it's about noon since the shop's opened up and it's been a few hours. So it's about, middle of the day. The sun's beating down, dust clouds are rolling in, and Jeeves lives in sort of an outskirt community of a few ramshackle shops and shacks that are, hundreds of feet apart at the best, sort of like a winding roads of scrap metal that lead up to each individual residence that give each other plenty of room, that then coalesce each of these roads up to these individuals, kind of come together and eventually lead back to what is a post-Scream constructed concrete highway that is going to lead straight to the City 42 ruins. Of course, City 42 being the collapsed remnants of one of these floating cities that has been built on top of, and much of the denizens of this planet live in these sort of cities. If you can call them that, because they're more ruins than anything else. But you start your trek out there, and you walk down the winding scrap metal road to eventually rejoin the highway, and it's a straight shot from there. Can't get lost. You start clip-clopping away, and along your path, why don't you give me a as you're walking around, taking in your surroundings, why don't you give me a notice wisdom check?
Alrighty, notice wisdom. There we go.
With an 8, you are looking around, kind of taking in your surroundings, scanning the environment, passively just moving your servos ahead of you while your mind is free to wander. And you pick up on a strange noise, a quiet, intermittent chirping that sounds like it's coming from something organic. And you refocus around and are able to identify about 100 feet up, sitting on a scrap pile on the opposite side of the highway, is a speck of orange. And you enhance your vision with your sort of in-person camera, just enough to zoom in to see that it is a bird perched on top of a scrap heap, picking at some weeds that are growing within it. You maybe don't recognize the bird per se off the bat, but it is vibrant yellow with orange spots and a large plumage on its back and tail. It looks pretty exotic.
Cool. So Weevil thinks back and he goes to himself.
Oh, Jeeves will love this.
And he is going to attempt to get a little bit closer just so he can get like a really nice series of photos of this thing. And just kind of like, clump across the highway to get as close as he can without startling the bird, because he's not particularly stealthy, but he's trying to go quietly.
Sure, why don't you give me a sneak dex check?
Hell yeah, dex is probably... Oh, it's actually not that bad of a score for me. I thought it was a -1. No.
A 10. Wow. You are able to creep pretty fucking close despite your massive frame. This thing is engrossed in trying to dig these weeds out. It's rattling the scrap metal around, covering any mishaps you may have. And you are able to get like the majority across the highway as you're zooming in, taking a good selection of snapshots from slightly different angles and distances. However, as you are engrossed on this bird, you hear up the way to your right, essentially, as you're at this point standing in the road, the distant hum and revs of a grav car floating slightly above the cracked concrete road, barreling towards you. As you look up, you see 2 black SUVs with Novacore branding on the side, just kind of zooming your way. Why don't you give me an invasion save?
Oh boy. Oh, it's at the top. Okay, I was looking for it in my checks.
That's pretty rough, dude. With a 3, you look up and see these cars, and you're like, I need to get out of the way. And as you begin to take a large step to your side, they clip you with the side of the essentially like they clip you with a headlight, and you spin, whir, fall to the ground, and scrape up the concrete, chip your paint a little bit, startle the bird, crash into its pile of scrap metal, essentially, and come to a sudden halt as these SUVs continue along their way, barely breaking their sort of pace as they collide with a massive robot. You sort of roll off the body, and they just no regard for what's happening. Continue on.
Weevil stands up as they're revving into the distance, and he like turns, and in an oddly old man gesture, he like stands and shakes his fist back and forth, and he says,
"Watch where you are going, you dumb punks."
I wanted, like, you said they're Novacore branded. Do these things, they look like pretty state of the art, right? It sounds like they're fairly new and not like an old junk heap that was repurposed on the planet or something like that. Like,
yeah, these things they're not like they're TL4, they're grav cars, but they look nice. They're pretty clean. They have this branding on the side of them that mark them as like Nova Corps, and they're pretty nice SUVs, yeah. Instead of like scrap heap pile, Jeeves drives a like what is essentially a hover Vespa with just crates and things tied to the back of it so he can pick things up, and it's made out of like it's got like 3 different color paint jobs on it because he's compiled it himself, and that's kind of like the norm on this planet. So these definitely stand out for sure.
Cool. Yeah. So you said they were headed towards home, right? Like towards the direction I came from?
The direction you come from, and as you kind of look off into the distance, you see them take an offshoot ramp off this main highway, and you recognize it as that's the offshoot you came from.
Okay. I'm gonna attempt to contact Jeeves through like just use like comms, because I think there's a little infrastructure, like a little. Not like I assume it's kind of spotty, but like I want to try and get in touch with him via like radio.
Yeah, this planet has been totally forgotten by civilized society, so there's a couple satellites floating around. Unfortunately, due to sort of like the lower gravity of this planet and the nature of it being a native water planet, but that has been covered in debris, there's like dust clouds floating around. Kind of on the level of like where normal clouds would be on Earth. They float up in the sky, so you don't get these like sandstorms that fuck you up, but they float up in the air, and they cause radio disturbances. So it's a crapshoot when you're out in the wilderness or in the wilds to see if. So why don't you give me a program id check to see if you can patch through at this particular moment.
Gotcha. Yeah, there we go.
With a 4, unfortunately, you attempt to get signal and simply cannot at this moment. You reroute to a couple different satellites. They're up there. You try and patch through to one that's further away, and it's but a different sort of triangulation, and it just doesn't. And neither of them are working.
Yeah. Okay. So I've already kind of started, and I assume the Nova Corps presence is kind of unusual in the area, but not necessarily anything that's unheard of. So Weevil is going to kind of shrug it off, and he's got a mission. He's going to continue on his way to the ruins of City 42 and come back later, and hopefully all is well.
Okay. You meander and wander and make your way towards the city. Unfortunately, still out of signal. Every time you intermittently check, you make it to the ruins within a couple of hours. Sun's slowly descending in the sky, but still pretty high. Early afternoon, and you see the outskirts of the remnants. A haphazard scene lies before Weevil as he stands at the end of this concrete road as it sort of joins the city ruins itself. Merchants have sprung up in every crevice and outcropping that can fit their wares. A wiry-looking blonde man hawks reassembled household scrap, with his prize display being a newly refurbished duster drone, a small airborne drone with essentially feather dusters on the end of it that can reach unconventional places. A Palgan slings crates of foreign fruit that he recently got from off-world. He's negotiating furiously with a younger pair over price as they deem it unreasonable, and he's
are there any plums among the
it looks like he has plums, yes.
Hell yeah, we will make some mental note.
Through the dusty haze of kicked up debris from large amounts of foot traffic in this market, Weevil is able to spot Jeeves' longtime love-hate off-world friend and scrap dealer, a large Grackhool with sandstone-colored skin, scarred exterior, and dirty workman's coveralls, Rock Grumash. He's currently sifting with one of his forearms through his inventory of metal doodads, bits and bobs, as he checks a manifest with 2 more of his arms and scratches his belly with his 4th arm.
Yeah. So before Weevil goes up to him, so in the past, you mentioned Jeeves knows this guy pretty well,
Yeah.
and Weevil has presumably accompanied him on at least a few of these pilgrimages. What's his stance on like VIs?
Oh, he fucking hates them.
Alrighty.
He views you've accompanied him once or twice, Jeeves, to talk to this guy. and he views VIs in generally the same light as each other. Like he blankets all of them together as essentially like garbage cleanup droids that have no personality or sentience. That's the level he sees all robots on, it seems, regardless of their function, personality, protocol. You know, he looks at a protocol droid that's a butler that's made to be polite and crack jokes and serve you, and he's just like, oh yeah, you're a mindless, faceless garbage picker-upper. Something about you know, scrap heaps, he'll call them, rubs him the wrong way, and he's made that abundantly clear to you in the like I think 2 to 3 times you've met him.
Cool. So in that case, I imagine there was a conversation the first time Jeeves was like bringing Weevil to the market, you know, to help carry shit or whatever, and he was like, "All right, Weevil, listen, there's this guy, Rock Grenache, fucking hates VIs. Look, I know you're real. I know you're a real boy, but he doesn't." So I think Weevil would play into that and kind of pretend whenever he's around Rock that he is just a dumb VI. Just because like it's easier than trying to convince him otherwise. You know, like why bother with a guy who's set in his ways and is kind of a dick or a dumbass about that kind of thing. And just like, you know, for the sake of not trying to make this guy feel too uncomfortable, Weevil is like outside of the market before he comes with an eye shot of Rock. You know, he hears like grunting and recognizes Rock's like stall or whatever, and he like his eyes kind of go blank somehow. If a little LED display could look blank, his back stiffens, and he holds his arms at like a 90-degree angle to his side, basically like you would picture like a classic kind of robot, with no personality otherwise, and he is going to continue on towards the area there.
Okay. As you make your way over towards Rock's stall with your new disguise, quote unquote, on, you meander over, and he, without looking up, he's still checking his manifest, playing with his bits and bobs, and scratching his big bulbous tummy. One second. I'll be right. And he kind of glances up at you underneath these like super tiny spectacles that he has kind of on the bridge of his nose. And he realizes who it is, and he goes, "Oh, it's one of you." And he kind of lowers the manifest. He's like, "What do you want, scrap heap?"
Yeah, so Weevil has no visible reaction to being disparaged like that, and he just like pivots his head a little bit and like, you know, does like a robot idle animation and goes,
Greetings, vendor Rock Grenache. I have been sent by my designated owner, Jeeves Petroni, in order to run some errands. I have a list of items as well as some credits and limited negotiation abilities.
Okay. What suits your fancy there? Bucket of bolts. What do you need? What is old
These are the items.
And you show him your manifest, and he looks.
Yeah,
and he's
I
like,
just show him the list in order of priority too. It's still sorted.
He's like, I can't help you with the I can't help you with the plums, but I got everything else you need. He kind of looks at his stock, and he looks at you. He looks at the manifest again. He looks at his manifest. He goes, "It's gonna run you about 800 credits for everything."
That is unfortunate, as I only have 500 credits on my person. Is it possible that you could come down to, say, 500 credits?
He kind of chuckles to himself, his bulbous underneck kind of jiggling. He goes, yeah, no, that's not happening there, bud. That's ridiculous. I'd be losing money on 500. Well, not that you understand the economy, you dumb piece of. No. Designation answer no. Designation get more dinero. Under comprende?
No comprendo español, señor.
But yeah, Jeeves or Weevil kind of pauses for a second, and the fucking loading display shows back up again, like he's processing what he just heard, and
Very well. I will attempt to connect with Jeeves Petroni and try and obtain more credits.
Yeah, you do that.
So yeah, Weevil is going to kind of stomp off to the side and just kind of not really be in the way, but he's gonna like attempt to connect with Jeeves and see if he can get a little bit more license for more money.
Sure.
But he's meanwhile kind of keeping an eye on Rock and looking around and just kind of making sure that he's on the level, and he's like, it does look like he has everything.
Yeah. Yeah, give me another program int check to see if you can patch through now you're in the more industrialized city, Nice. With a 10, you are able to actually patch the Jeeves this time, and you go to call him, and it rings, and you can tell, well, you've made it through, you have signal, but after a while, you get Jeeves's voicemail, a very retro style version of him going, beep, you've reached Jeeves Petroni. I'm unable to come to my cub pad right now, despite the thing being attached to my freaking wrist. If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask. Leave your name and number at the beep. Beep!
Yeah, Weevil hangs up before leaving his name and number. And he turns back to Rock.
As you turn back to Rock, you notice that in your waiting to connect to Jeeves, the failure to connect to Jeeves, etc., you turn back, and Rock is now in talks with a tall and slender Malcoon, wearing a long dust brown colored overcoat, a couple of laser pistols slung at his hip, and a sort of big, sort of 10-gallon-esque hat made of some sort of animal leather. And he's like leaned on his counter, leaning into Rock, pointing, gesturing, kind of waving at the sky, pointing at Rock. The two don't seem to be in a full-on argument, but you can tell that they aren't really close friends either.
Gotcha. Yeah, I turn up my gain sensors to try and listen to what they're saying.
Yeah, they're not being too shy about it either, so you just tune your audio sensors towards him or them, and you hear Rock go, listen, Kango, this thing is, it's something else, alright? I didn't mean to make any false promises, but this Malcoon Kango cuts him off, and he's like, nah, listen here, bud. You told me when I brought this in you were the man for the job, and if you're telling me you don't have the salt to handle it, then you should have said so on day one. I left this thing with you 3 days ago, and you're telling me you made no progress? What the fuck did I just pay you for, huh? And Rock kind of stammers, and he's like, no. What you brought me was something I've never seen before, and if anyone on this rock can crack it, it's me, but you need to understand that. And they're talking about something that Kango brought in that it sounds like he paid Rock some money to unlock, and Rock has been unable to unlock it. And Kango kind of slams on the counter, and he's like, damn it, Rock. Okay, well, if you can't get the job done, let me at least see the damn thing. Make sure you didn't bust it up with your big meat claws or whatever the hell you call those things you have instead of hands. And Rock, for the first time you've seen him, has kind of dropped his like tough guy exterior and seems to be a little nervous around this Kango fella as he kind of fishes through one of his many boxes of bits and bobs, and he pulls out a small black carrying case that he unlocks. He clips open essentially like a pelican case, and he kind of slides across this device that you can't really see the interior of this case from where you are, but he slides the case across to Kango, and he's like, oh, well, at least it's still in one piece.
Yeah, so Weevil kind of hears this exchange, and it sounds to him and to me that they're like trying to there's hacking involved. And Weevil senses an opportunity, and he turns and he goes,
Pardon, Rock, Brumash, and undesignated user. I could not help but overhear that it sounds as if you are attempting to bypass the security of some unknown object. I am in the market for certain items, and in the interest of bargaining, perhaps I may give it a look.
Rock immediately launches into a quick tirade where he's like, hey, you fucking bucket of bolts, who told you that you could listen into? And Kango kind of puts a hand up and he's like, now, Rock. Be nice to the boy. And he kind of looks you up and down with a sly smile, his big beady red eyes completely glossed over, as many Malcoons are, as he's looking you up and down with this kind of cold, expressionless stare. And he's like, you know, Rock, something about this interaction tells me that our strange friend here might be better suited for this task than you would be. So, you know, I'm thinking maybe since you were unable to make good on our deal, I am entitled to a bit of a refund, and maybe I might contract our friend here to. And Rock kind of cuts him off. He's like, oh, no, this is my contact, actually. This is my good friend. Well, no, this is my he does what he does what I say, so you can't cut me out of this deal.
I apologize for cutting you off, Rock Grunash, but my designated owner/operator is Jeeves Petroni. However, I have been licensed to make bargains on his behalf.
Weevilbot, override program, asparagus.
Access denied.
He goes, oh no, apricot. And you recall, you recall you and Jeeves have set this up so for you to essentially, in case Rock tries something and you need to get on his good side, he's like, look, I'm going to tell him your override protocol is apricot. And if he says apricot, right, yeah. Just go along with it, pretend like he controls you. It'll make things smooth over. He goes, oh, yeah. Now Weevil has to do what I say. So, Weevilbot, you unlock this thing, and I'll give you the things you need, no charge. And Kango, I still get the money. Is that agreeable? And Kango looks at Weevil and goes, I mean, he kind of waves his hand in front of your face. No reaction. Not your sensor, but like your just display face, which, you know, you just see him lean in. He's like looking up above your actual sensor, and he's like, I mean, is there anybody in there? You sure you don't want to make a fortune there, metal fella? We can cut the big guy out of the deal, and
external input denied. Program apricot active.
I don't rightly know what that means, but I reckon I have some sort of idea. So, all right, Rock, you got a deal. If the bucket of bolts can break this thing, then your debt's forgiven. You'll get the rest of the money, and I guess you'll give him a pile of shit for some reason. That's not really my concern. Well, here. And he spins the case around to you very delicately. He goes, I found this thing off-world, and I can tell it's some sort of container, some sort of carrying case, some sort of device, and I'm unable to get past its security protocols, and so is the incompetent lumbering fool over here. So maybe you could work a little tech magic with it and see if you have any better luck. And he shows you this kind of device. It is a sort of a oblong pill-shaped object. It is sleek and black with just a few nodules and bits and bobs on the end. It's got it's about a foot in length, I want to say. Maybe a little bit shorter, like 8 inches. Just a few inches in diameter, maybe about 4, circular on either end, with a sort of a node on the top of one end that's sort of it almost looks like a dial. It's got a little red sensor on the side that has 6 blips on it, sort of a bar with 6 segmented red lights on it. And on the other end that doesn't have the dial is a concave section with a like sort of 12-watt jack into it. It is extremely smooth. So not a lot of like TL4 signatures of gizmos and graples and open circuitry. And the only identifying sort of bit about it is you see on the side there is a small engraved like sort of sticker that says ULF Tech, which you have not heard of before, as you, I imagine, search your databases for if you've heard of whatever ULF Tech is, a company, a program, whatever. You haven't heard of it.
Yeah. Okay. So Weevil gingerly picks this thing up. Still kind of. I mean, he's a fairly sophisticated robot, so his movements can be kind of fluid if he so chooses. But he is still kind of like picking it up, rotating it 45 degrees, very like swiftly and like very like mechanical. Still playing up the default program routine. But he's looking for like you already outlined, any identifying marks and anywhere to jack in. Anything that could give him any indication of what this is and like how he might interface with it.
Yeah. Yeah, your most obvious route, like I said, is the concave jack on the bottom.
Gotcha.
Which you would be able to, you have a wrist port with a couple of different jacks in it, so you would be able to, one of yours will fit in this.
Okay, cool. So, in that case, Weevil pauses and he sets the device back down with the concave bit facing him so that he can jack into it, and he pulls out the wrist, and before he pulls out the wrist extensor or whatever, and before he jacks in, he turns to them and he says,
"Gentlemen, it is within my programming to remind you to please back up. I do not know what this device is or what it is capable of. However, it would be advisable to exercise caution."
And without waiting for a reaction, he plugs in and is going to attempt to see what it's all about.
Yeah, you're immediately brought up with a password interface that you are all too familiar with, but please enter password, and you don't have the password, so you start running subroutines and hack routines to try and get past and around this. Go ahead, give me a program int check to try and hack this thing.
Cool. And yeah, Weevil is also, for what it's worth, he is trying to exercise caution. He's like looking for ways to, like, I think he's done a little bit of hacking for Jeeves, but like not like he's used to like, okay, cool, partition my data out this way, create a firewall here. So he's like doing that in addition to all of these things, and not sure it'll make any differences, but he's just, running all the standard checks. Nothing seems too out of place here. You said program int?
Yeah.
Cool. Sorry, for some reason it's brought up like 3 dialog boxes. Okay. There we go.
With a 12, a whopping 12, you start making your way around security systems, through holes, and covering your tracks sort of along the way for not like to remain invisible, but sort of to protect your own ass, since you're communicating with this device in a way. And as you go through subroutines and sort of metadata that is baked into sort of whatever this device is, whatever residual tech it has in it, you're able to deduce a few things. The primary thing you're able to deduce is this thing is part device, part casing. So this black shell around it with the red sensors. This is all protective casing and indicators to determine device health. And it is encasing something inside. You are also able to determine that this thing is way older than most devices you've interacted with. It is almost definitely pre-tech. If you couldn't tell by the outside looks of it, the coding uses a lot of outdated, or not outdated, but no longer used sort of signatures, leaving a little bit of like a footprint that says like, oh, this is old tech. Pretty advanced stuff too. You're also able to tell something in whatever it's encasing is some sort of weapon. Perhaps the sort of exact determination of what this weapon is you're not sure. Okay. It could be some sort of electrical charge, like a taser, or maybe it just encases a gun of some sort. This is a carrying case for a gun. You're unsure. However, you eventually hit a stopgap as it comes to the sort of final firewall to get the servos in this case to twist, expand, and unseal. As you kind of hit this wall, you're unable to breach that final precipice, and you circumvent that route and go through a different way. No luck. Try again. No luck. And after a few minutes of effort, Weevil, you feel a little bit of a sense of defeat. You're not sure if you can actually crack this thing fully.
Right. Okay, so, having exhausted most of these back doors, Weevil's gonna attempt to pull out. Like, he's like, okay, so I believe that I have exhausted all of my opportunities here. And he's going to try to, seal up the back doors and get out of the device.
Yeah. As you essentially go to retreat from this thing, it's almost like walking. It's almost like Weevil has been injected into a sort of cyber maze as he's making his way through this labyrinth of code. These circumventing these dead ends and cutting through these hazards and obstacles. And as you begin to sort of retrace your steps and retreat out of this sort of cyberspace, you realize that essentially a door has closed behind you. The path has changed, and you find yourself unable to immediately effectively eject from this thing as you sort of find yourself stuck, almost stranded in here. Your system sort of stalls out for a brief moment. As you can tell, certain servos in your physical body's legs are kind of jamming and locking up. And your system diagnostics, which are constantly, running and you're able to monitor, you notice that your processing power is beginning to increase. Your CPU usage essentially is whirring and cranking up as you are sort of not only trying to process what's happening, but get out of what's happening, trying to bypass these whatever is occurring that is keeping you here. And sure enough, your processing power begins to skyrocket from about 40% to 60 to 80 to 100, and you're stalled out at 100, completely locked up at a brief moment. And something strange happens as your usage ticks up again to 101%. And then it begins to rapidly climb to 102, 3, 4, 10, 15, 30, 200, 230, 400, 500, and it eventually whirs and grinds to about 650%. All of your external sort of functions shut down as you essentially lose control of your legs and arms, your servos, your LED display potentially doing God knows what. You're not even aware of what it's doing. Your auditory and visual sensors shut down as Weevil's internal sense is kind of in a interlocking struggle with this thing, and this insane CPU usage, which should not even be possible, has kind of locked all of your other systems out.
Yeah, Weevil is like, I mean, since he can't fucking do anything else, he is like, he's aware of this, I assume, based on, like, there's a part of him that is still, like, you know, able to think and process things, but just can't physically do anything. So within his own, you know, head, basically,
He's like, abort, 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 exit program, abort.
And this is, like, I think the closest a robot has ever felt to panic, because he's essentially, like, lost all control, it sounds like, and he's, you know, trying to disengage with the program, trying everything that he can, and you know, attempting to sever his link to this device. But he's also, like, simultaneously monitoring his HUD, seeing error messages, looking for any method of exit that he can think of.
Yeah. Briefly before this happens, as you're sort of as you check your systems and look for continually look for backdoors and other ways to free up your systems, you do notice a new sort of error blip in your HUD display. Sort of below your system's diagnostics, you see a small sort of pop up. A loading bar almost that is you didn't notice before for some reason, and it's almost completed, and it simply reads it's a command prompt with a colon after it that simply reads executing Archimedes program. And as you process that it's there, and begin to try and use your very limited thinking power to search any internal databases, as to what this might be, because you've never heard of this before, and it's apparently a system running on it's a program running on your system, a piece of software you have that you didn't know you had. As you begin to think on, well, what is this? It completes, dings, and everything shuts down. It goes black, essentially. Processing power drops to 0. Your body goes kind of limp. And you essentially slip into the closest thing a robot can have to death before beep beep systems reboot, servos fire back up, CPUs re-engage, your fusion core at the heart of your body turns back on. And all of your general diagnostic sort of systems begin to boot up. Windows 10 boots up. Microsoft Paint boots back up. You turn back on, essentially. Your audio sensors recalibrate, your visual sensors flick back on, and you see Kango and Rock looking not at you, but at the device on the table that you are suddenly no longer jacked into, as it has opened up to a degree, revealing an inner sort of blue coil section with cooling bars around it, liquid fueled cooling bars that bubble and churn. As you are able to regain feeling in your servos and your fingertips and your knees and your joints, everything very rapidly, within just a matter of a few seconds this happens, returns back to normal. But it looks like some time has passed as you are now ejected from this. Kango and Rock are discussing something, and yeah. The scene it was not an instantaneous shutdown reboot process. It looks like maybe no more than a handful of seconds or a minute or so,
Mhm.
but your system returns to normal
Gotcha.
as you come to.
Yeah, so Weevil comes back to, and there's this really weird distorted noise he makes, which is like it's a gasp, you know, like he's it's like reflexive almost, like his system is rebooted, and you know, he's taking air in again, even though he has no lungs. But he quickly regains his composure and kind of takes in all the details you've mentioned, and looks back down at the device, looks back at Rock and Kango, and kind of with you know, still maintaining that facade, he goes,
Gentlemen, Rock, Grunash, and undesignated user. It seems that I have managed to access the device. However, I believe that it may be very dangerous and perhaps is some sort of weapon. I advise caution.
Kango kind of gives you a nod and kind of pshaw waves at you with a loose kind of hand. He's like, "Don't even worry about it, kiddo. You did good. The thing's open. I can tell it's valuable at the least. And old Kango here," and he gestures towards himself with a thumb, is mighty nimble, mighty sprightly, very careful. This thing, and he kind of picks it up and kind of loosely tosses the weight from one hand to another. He's still holding it with two hands, but he kind of, this thing is in the best, most delicate hands. And you have my thanks for getting it open. And,
Very well. However, I believe I would.
Sorry, Weevil pulls up a form on his data pad, and it says waiver of liability. And he hands the blank data pad to Kango and goes,
Very well. However, it is part of my protocol that you must sign this and say that anything that happens subsequently is no longer in the responsibility of Jeeves Petroni.
he looks down at this waiver, and he looks up at you, and he looks over at Rock, and he looks back at you, and he goes, "I don't know who the fuck Jeeves Petroni is, but Kango don't sign nothing without his lawyer present." And he kind of chuckles, revealing some sort of you know, not so well maintained teeth, or sort of row of yellowish kind of half rotted teeth, as if, you know, Kango doesn't have a lawyer.
I'm not gonna prep that.
And he goes, "Rock, why don't you get your boy here?" And Rock's like, "Weevil, sheave the pad. Let's not bother our good friend here. In fact, Weevil, why don't you go on and get back to apricot deactivated."
Yeah, Weevil makes a big show of slumping, and then you hear vroom as like his servos re-engage, and he stands back up, and he's like,
I am back. Hello, Rock, Grumash.
Why don't you get back to your owner, your proper owner? I've had a change of heart, and you can have the list for free. Tell Jeeves, you know, I owed him one. And he begins to loosely and quickly assemble all of the bits that he has on the list into like a milk crate. And he kind of shoves them towards you across the counter, and he's like, "Hey, why don't you get on out of here? Me and my friend have some things to discuss."
Cool. Yeah, so Weevil turns and with one hand picks up the box, and then with the other flips down a retractable set of prongs that is like the size and shape of a milk crate from his back, and just kind of slots the box into that, so that he's got like a built-in like backpack kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then he is going to turn and kind of march away, leaving Kango and Rock behind. But he's gonna go go to the Palgan he saw earlier hawking the plums and see if he can find anywhere to get that padloid for Jeeves before he starts heading back.
Why don't you give me a quick notice wisdom check as you leave these two?
Sure thing. Yeah.
With a 10, you look over and something catches your eye as you walk away. The red blips on this device, the outskirts of it, the casing that we talked about. There were originally, I believe, 6 interspaced red lights within sort of a bar display. One has gone out. There's only 5 now.
Seeing this, Weevil kind of stops, and he thinks for a second, and then he just keeps going.
You march away as these two finish up their business dealings, discussing money and payments and future job opportunities. To sort of fast track this, the Palgan will sell you a crate of plums and throw in today's newspaper at Padloyd for 50 credits. If that sounds
easy
fair.
deal. And I come home with a clean 450 for Jeeves. Hell yeah, profitable day.
He doesn't give you too much guff, but yeah, you're able to throw the crate on top of the other crate, lock them in with an elastic fastener.
Else.
Honestly, yeah. But you begin heading back to Jeeves for the day. Your successful shopping trip, more successful than Jeeves could have probably ever hoped for. You meander and wander and walk back down the highway from whence you came. The afternoon sun slowly setting behind you as we get into the 4 p.m., 5 p.m. territory. Do you have anything you want to do on your couple of hours walk back, or are you sort of just on autopilot now that you have everything in tow?
I think I'm kind of on autopilot. Weevil feels pretty good about himself. He managed to fucking pull one over on Rock and successfully navigated the deal. One thing I did forget that I wanted to mention is that while he was fucking around with that device, he would have been taking pictures of it. Like, cause he's like, oh, interesting, pre-tech, click, 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 Ulf tech, whatever it says, just so he has like them in his database.
Yeah, I think you were able to grab a couple before you jacked into it, essentially.
Cool.
Like right before you jacked in,
Yeah, I have a camera, I might as well use it. So yeah, other than that, nothing that I can think of. He's just kind of going home, just trying not to go too fast, but not lollygagging too much because he doesn't want to spill the plums all over the dirty concrete metal floor.
Cool. So you're clumping your way back, and 20 minutes go by, half an hour, an hour and a half. You are about to take the offshoot to get onto the scrap metal road that winds and leads up to Jeeves's shack after another about half hour of walking. And as the sun set behind you, essentially back towards the ruins of City 42, something sort of internally compels you to like kind of look back at it, admire the sunset for once, maybe take a picture for Jeeves, as the sort of radiant light kind of does that Manhattan henge thing as it kind of comes between two skyscrapers, the blood red sun kind of coming through it at a very beautiful angle. And as you kind of look back towards the city, something pretty subtle catches your attention as almost instantaneously a mushroom cloud sprouts up from the city, a very subtle echoing in the environment around you before just a wave of dust and scrap and heat and radiation washes over you, blowing the plum leaves on the tops of them around, rattling the scrap in your backpack, shaking the ground beneath you as this huge cloud of dust, debris, and energy kind of manifests within the city that you had came from. And as it begins to clear after a second, like that initial shock. Well, the mushroom cloud is obviously hanging around, but as the shock wave begins to clear out, you can just hear the distant kind of crumbling of buildings as they are collapsing to the ground in the city.
Yeah. All is quiet for a minute. And you hear a click as Weevil takes a photo of the mushroom cloud and then turns and fucking sprints up the off ramp towards Jeeves's house. He is like full tilt, like clonk, 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 just as fast as his metal legs can carry him. And he is meanwhile trying to connect with Jeeves again, just to see if he can get him to pick up finally. But barring that, he is full tilt, running.
Yeah. It is a short distance via Weevil's max speed, but you give Jeeves a call anyway, and again, he does not pick up. It goes straight to voicemail. You do have signal, but he doesn't pick up for some reason. And after about 10 minutes of running, cutting your trip time down by 2/3, you are able to reach Jeeves's shack. You enter visible distance as you round a bend around a scrap heap, and you can see his vacuum repair shop. And you notice that the sign is on, the shutters are still up, but the door is, or rather, the sign is the sign is off, and the shutters are up, and the door is wide open.
Okay. Yeah, he's a forgetful old man, but I don't think that's happened before.
No. And it's also the middle of the day to a degree.
Right.
It's late afternoon, but he should still be open.
Right, yeah. So Weevil is going to clank up the ramp to the door, and look around inside and kind of turn on the light on his chest to get a little bit of a glow. And he's like calling out,
Jeeves, are you here? This is highly irregular. I have something I must discuss. Jeeves.
And yeah, so he's like looking around for him, searching the shop, seeing if Jeeves is even here, because he hasn't been picking up, so that's been fucking weird.
Yeah, as you approach the on-ramp to the shop, this little like wheelchair accessible ramp that leads up to the front door, you notice that something flags for you as your sensors pick up on some irregularities. There are large scrapes along the door frame where the door connects to the frame itself, and damaged bits on the door handle. It looks like something forced this door open, almost like kicked it in. And as you enter the shop, it is very apparent something has happened here, as there are like little scrap metal display bots and gadgets that have been bashed and thrown to the floor. It looks like some sort of struggle, some sort of major accident. Something got loose in here. And as you call out, Jeeves, 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 you hear just a very subtle from the back office where you last saw Jeeves working.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So yeah, I'm going into the back office, and like I as I walk past the door, I want to take a quick look at that and see like how does it look like the door was like, is it completely blown off the hinges? Was it like I want to see if it looks like it was like one big hit, a bunch of little ones, if it was like claw marks or a hammer or
It looks like brute force, blunt sort of trauma has forced this open, and whatever it was did it in a single blow based on the scrape marks. It's like long, very straight marks where like bits of the door were pushed open, but in one very smooth motion. So like either like a battering ram that just one poof and it knocked it right open, or like a very well placed powerful kick. You're not too sure. Whatever it was must have packed like a hell of a punch, because even like a really strong burly dude's combat boot kicking into this door is not guaranteed to get it open in one. It would probably be less of a clean break. This is like something exponentially more powerful than that, something mechanical based potentially, who knows, but something very strong and blunt has forced this open with one swift motion.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, so Weevil just kind of takes that in as he's walking. His priority is Jeeves, but he just wanted to see if he could determine how whatever the fuck happened here. So he's going towards the source of that coughing, and he cranks up the brightness as he goes into the darkness of the shop and is looking around for his old man.
Okay. You open the sliding metal door to Jeeves's office and are greeted with a similar sight as to the front of the shop. Things have been tossed around, crates have been knocked over, components have been spilled everywhere. The sort of bot that Jeeves was working on when you first left is still in the same spot it is, but it looks like it's been completely caved in. What was once a flat Roomba is now in the shape of a V, as something has essentially smashed it in the middle and brought the sides up. Jeeves is crumpled in the corner, just like a pile of rags almost, as his jumpsuit kind of loosely clings to him, and he's just small splatters of blood on his clothes and the ground around him as he coughs a little bit again.
Gotcha. Yeah, so Weevil stoops down and is going to do like a bioscan on Jeeves and check for his vitals and make sure he's alive and attempt to identify if he can move him without causing injury.
Yeah, he's rough. Yeah, bioscan reveals he's roughed up, apparent enough. He's been hit with a lot of blunt force trauma again. He has a few broken bones. His heart rate is a little slow. He's in. It seems like a state of half consciousness based on his neural firings. Not totally unconscious, but not totally cognizant either. A lot of movement is unadvisable, but getting him to bed would be possible and potentially preferable than being on the floor right now.
Okay, so Weevil is going to really go over to Jeeves's cot and make sure that it's like clear of wrenches and debris and shit. And then gently pick Jeeves up and lay him down on the cot.
Okay. You lay him down, and his eyes kind of flutter open a little bit. He's like, "Oh, hey there, Weevil. How's it going there, bud?"
Jeeves, you are injured. What happened?
Oh, you know, Jace. I fell. I tripped and I hit my head on something once or 12 times. Clumsy old Jeeves.
Jeeves, you are a terrible liar. The door was blown off its hinges.
I fell really hard. What can I say? And he gives like a half-hearted chuckle and coughs up a little bit of blood.
Yeah. Weevil is going to just kind of shake his robotic head and attempt to treat some of the surface level wounds, like if there's any scrapes or blood, like get rid of some of the just like patch Jeeves up the best he can for now. But he takes the boxes off his back and sets the box of plums next to Jeeves's bed and says,
"These are for if you are good while I am treating your injuries."
And then he's gonna try and gather like clean rags and assuming Jeeves has like a dusty first aid kit he never fucking uses, so Weevil's gonna take that.
Yeah, you start going through the belabored and lengthy process of slowly cleaning him up, careful not to exacerbate any wounds or tear open anything that's begun the healing process, like any cuts he has. Clean him up. And during the process, he starts making small talk a little bit, and he's like, "So, how'd the trip to town go there, bud? You get that devioscope I asked for?"
I got more than the devioscope. I got the entire list, and beep beep.
Jeeves sees 450 credits reappear in his account.
Oh,
I got it all at a very heavy discount.
wow. I didn't expect you to be able to swing that much. I didn't know Rock became such a softie in the past. However long it's been since I seen him.
Yeah, Weevil doesn't say this, but in his head he thinks, oh, he's more than soft. He's probably dust. And he's like, you know, as he finishes patching Jeeves up, and he'll pass some plums to Jeeves and allow the old man to kind of take a snack, and then he says,
Also, I have good news and bad news, although I do not understand if the bad news is my fault.
Well, hold on there, bud, because I got some news for you too. Mind if I go first?
Yes, please do.
Can you do me a favor there, bud, and go over to my main display over there? Look on the third monitor up there.
okay,
Can you
yeah,
tell me what
Weevil,
you see?
he does that, and he goes, he's like clicking through the programs and then trying to see what he can see.
Yeah, you see there is it is a sort of interstellar sensor kind of module set up for a variety of parameters, almost like a little bit of a space scanner within a limited range that can detect large anomalies. You know, if there's like a radiation spike somewhere in space because of some uh, uh, astronomical kind of event. There's a preset for large clusters of meteors that are potentially heading towards the planet. You know, and there is a third, or not a third because there's a bunch of these, but there is one setting, just called W3VIL, and that one kind of piques your interest. As you toggle it on, you see a very loose map of large space. You see sort of like a central radar blip where you are, and a little spinning radar thing, and you just see way out there. It gets slowly rounding the circumference of the circle, and it gets to one spot, and it goes bloop, and there's one little blip. And he goes, and as you kind of look at it, you hear from over your shoulder Jeeves cough, and he's like, "You know what that is there, bud? You know what that blip is?"
Is it my signature? But I am on Rally 2. That does not, I do not understand.
Yeah, that's you there, bud. How can you be in two places at once? I got a running theory if you want to hear it.
Yes, please. Also, sit back.
He lies back down as he was reaching for a plum behind your back, and he goes, "Oh, okay." He lies back down.
I'll pass him the plum, yeah.
Okay. He takes a big bite while he's lying down. He chews on it for a second, mouth half full. He's like, "Well, I figure if it's you, unless you got any brothers out there that I'm unaware of, and unless robots can reproduce in a way that I'm unaware of, then I figure it's got to be where you came from instead. The Papa ship, if you will.
The Magellan.
Or at least part of it, yeah."
Why did you not tell me you had this? You were searching for this.
Well, I wanted it to be a surprise, and I don't want to get your hopes up if I didn't find anything. But I found something. It's good news, man. You should be happy.
I have been searching for something like this for years.
Yeah. So maybe we can over when we get some time, we can shut the shop down and we can head on out there and we can see what everything is about, But what was the news you wanted to tell me? Let's keep the good news rolling.
I saw this very cool bird.
And Weevil transfers him the pictures of the bird he took. Um,
I thought you may enjoy it, as we have not seen any birds for quite a while.
Oh my god. That's a yellow spotted whatchamacallit. That's you know that this is a bird sponsored by the pre-tech candy bar, the whatchamacallit. They genetically engineered a new version of bird as a marketing campaign.
yeah, it fucking everywhere it goes, it does like the whatchamacallit jingle, and that's its mating call.
Yeah. This is a bioengineered bird to advertise candy. That's a yellow spotted whatchamacallit. You know, those are rare. I didn't even think they were native to this planet. Thanks, Weevil. I'm gonna add this to the scrapbook, probably right between the the orange-tailed Pomeran and the green-hued squawk box.
And cannot forget the red-breasted Snickers bird.
I ain't seen one of those yet, unfortunately.
All right, now, please, Jeeves, lay back down.
He leans back. He's like, all right. Whatever you say, nurse.
City 42 is no more.
But he gets a picture of the mushroom cloud.
He kind of like looks at you. What do you mean? Like I fell out of the sky or something? And then, boop, and then he's like, what? And he stops and he looks down at his wrist. What's this? And you see just his face drop as he realizes, what's this?
Yeah. So Weevil kind of turns to him and and he kind of like shorts out for a second, and then he just tells, with making sure Jeeves is still lying down, tells Jeeves the entire interaction of what happened, right down to talking to Rock, the not being able to get a good deal, blah blah blah, and then Kango appearing with this item and Weevil jacking into it and suspecting it's a piece of advanced pre-tech. He shows Jeeves the photos, he talks to him about it, and he mentions like,
I attempted to tell them it seemed to be some kind of weapon, but I thought it would possibly be a small stun grenade or something like a taser. I did not understand the scope of the destruction it could wrought.
Jeeves listens pretty intently while you tell your story, asking very few questions, nodding along, prompting you to go into more details when you maybe glimpse over something that he's curious about. But he kind of pinches his brow and wipes the sweat from his forehead that has been accumulating from just anxiety from listening to this tale. And he's looking at the pictures, examining them, and he's like, "Oh, yo, buddy, I ain't got a clue as to what this thing is. I ain't never seen anything like this before. This ULF tech, I ain't never heard of them. Well, I don't know what that is." And I'm assuming you tell him everything, right?
Oh, 100. Yeah, he gets literally everything.
This Archimedes program you're apparently running, I don't know what that is either. Maybe it's got something to do with whatever the hell that thing is welded to the back of your ports. But
yeah, Weevil gingerly kind of reaches up to touch it, almost subconsciously, and then as Jeeves is talking,
I don't know what that is. I don't know what this is. I don't know if there's any survivors after what this is. And he points to the mushroom cloud and the bomb and your ports. And but I do know one thing, Weevil, and that's sentients don't really take kindly to other sentients made out of metal blowing up their cities, even if by accident, and even if it's not your fault, which it's not your fault, Weevil. You didn't know. You were just doing a thing, a task, and all you did was unlock it. You didn't set it off. It's not your fault, Weevil. All right, but other people might not see it that way, and he kind of glances past you for a second towards his monitors, and he goes, "Maybe it's better you take a little vacation. Get off planet while everything is sorted out here. People figure out what's going on and come to their own conclusions, and maybe it's better you're not around while that happens.
I have started to come to the same conclusion.
Because
Although,
you might wind up in more trouble than I'm in, you know?
yes, and speaking of that, answer one question for me, please, Jeeves.
Well, yeah, what's that, Weevil? He kind of looks down at the ground, knowing the direction that this is going and already kind of like dreading the conversation.
Were the people who did this,
And he kind of motions around to the destruction and implications of Jeeves' injuries.
were they from Nova Corps?
He looks at you somberly for a moment. His mouth begins to open, like he's like about to say something, but still processing what his answer is going to be, before he kind of cracks a half-hearted smile and just goes, I don't need you to worry about that right now, Weevil. You got a lot on your plate, and it doesn't really matter who they were. They're
All I
gone
do
now.
is worry, but they may be bad.
Hey, Weevil, do me a favor. He shoots you like a little finger gun. He's like, set worry protocols to 15%.
Worry protocols increased to 45%.
Oh, you got me. Should have known that wasn't gonna work.
Yeah, and Weevil just like he does like a mechanical sigh, and he says,
All right, Jeeves. I do believe it is the best course of action for me to go off-world for some time. However, promise me that you will not make any stupid purchases.
He thinks about it for a moment. He goes, all right. Normally I'd make a joke here, but for you, Evil, circumstances considered, I promise.
I will do what I may to attempt to send funds back and aid in digging out of this hole, although it would be helpful if I had more context. However, I understand you may not be willing to share that at this time.
I just don't need you wrapped up in all this right now, Evil. Jesus knows how to look care after himself. He knows how to take care of himself. I'll be good while you're gone. Seen the sights. You come back. Everything you want to report, I'll be right here waiting for you. And, we can talk regularly if you, manage to, the signal's coming from the Saragon section of space. So I believe it's somewhere within that system. So if they have signal out there, maybe on Saragon too, if it's there, you can give me a call. We can catch up. Let each other know we're doing all right.
Very well.
and Weevil is going to attempt the gentlest, warmest, organic hug he can manage with his giant mechanical body, and hopefully not crack too many of Jeeves's ribs.
Yeah. You guys embrace for a very long hug, best you can, and you hear over your shoulder, pring, from Jeeves's wrist as he goes, "I just booked your ticket for tomorrow, bud. Thanks to the credits you saved me, I figured I'd get you an upgrade to passenger class." Here,
That is very kind. Thank you, Jeeves.
yeah. Enjoy the free mimosas while you're on board. Why don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he tells you that he's booked your plane. Essentially, your plane. He's booked your 747 to go to space tomorrow. No, he's like, you leave from the ruins of City 45, their spaceport, tomorrow morning.
Okay.
So why don't you get what you need, rest up, and head on out.
Yeah. I know we're probably going to cut it soon, but Weevil is going to spend the night trying to organize as much as he can because he's like, he basically grabs like 4 items, like a laser pistol, like slots it into his wrist and takes his share of the credits that, you know, they have for his little allowance. And within like 5 minutes, he is all packed because he doesn't need food, doesn't need clothing. And then he spends the rest of the night trying to
I have so much time. Oh god.
yeah, like future proof against Jeeves, even though he knows the second he leaves, it's going to turn into a tornado again.
Yeah, you do your best. You organize and organize and organize, and you feel like it's in a good place, but like you said, yeah, he's gonna fuck this up in a matter of days.
Because he's bedridden right now. That's why it's, you know,
Yeah.
he's used to putting a thing, organizing a box, putting it down, turning around, and then coming back to it 5 minutes later and finding everything torn out of it.
Yeah. Great. And the morning comes, you and Jeeves have a heartfelt goodbye, and you set off with your hobo bindle of minuscule belongings for the ruins of City 45 to catch your flight out to Saragon and identify your lost signal, discover its source, hopefully leaving Jeeves in good hands, his own hands rather, but to his own devices, which won't result in catastrophe ideally, while the accidental pseudo nuking of City 42 blows over.